Teachers, I have 4 more tips to help you as you begin the school year with distance learning. Let's get into it. So, one of the things that has been very unfortunate over these past couple months has been the uncertainty as it relates to school. And in the spring, everyone's life was affected by this pandemic. And what it did was it exposed the expectations that parents have of schools. And it also exposed what we really already knew was that parents depended on schools to not only teach their kids, but be a safe place for their kids to be while they were pursuing their career to support their family. And as we've seen, unfortunately, sadly, with this whole debate over whether or not to reopen schools, we've seen some pretty nasty things said in various communities about teachers, and that's really unfortunate. And I would like to believe that it was those things are being said in the heat of the moment. They're being said out of anger. I'd love to believe that people don't feel though that way about teachers, that teachers are, they're lazy, they don't want to work. And definitely we know in the profession that it's, those summer months are not without work to do. So that being said, the first thing that I want to share with you is that we need to make sure that we deal with those parent expectations head on. Deal with those parent expectations head on. Now, the as a teacher, remember, teachers are leaders, but as a teacher as well, you are a representative of the district. Now, that's a great thing. As a representative of the district, you show the very best side of the district because you are the one who is doing the work in the classroom with the students. Now, there can be a downside to that as well when parents are disappointed and things aren't necessarily going the way that they want them to go. And to prove that point, I want to share with you something that I found on Reddit. And definitely I don't expect you to read this whole thing because it's very small, but this is a teacher who is just trying to understand why parents are requiring a live stream lesson. This teacher isn't necessarily comfortable with that, and they would love to do a pre-record video and do meet and greet with certain small groups of students. But they in this particular community, the parents want more than that. And here is, again, I'll sum this up for you. Here's this answer to this. The previous question begins with lurking parent here. Now, this parent goes on to talk about how their experience in the spring was a little bit different because what they did was they made sure that their kids, they had order when they were at home. And they talked about how the kids got about 25 minutes a week of in-person or synchronous learning with their teacher. And then they were given about 90 minutes of work to complete. And so the parent, they go on to say they put together this strict schedule for their child. And at the end of the day, they ended up letting their child play 3.5 hours of video games. They actually put it in the answer, not 3, not 4, but 3.5 hours of video games per day. And this parent is this is a parent, this is a partner. And so they talk about how they're busy working from 8:30 to 6. And the parent goes on to talk about how they need that live stream to keep their kids engaged because they're busy working from 8:30 to 6. And so that's their situation. And for many of you out there as teachers, that's your situation as well with your own kids. And for many of you, and for many of you with kids, you can definitely empathize with this parent and their situation. So the best thing that we can do as teachers is get out ahead of those expectations, because there are certain realities that parents are dealing with. But then obviously we know that there are certain realities on the side of the teacher, that things that we have to consider. So it's best to have that conversation up front. I remember when I got married, I definitely learned a lot about expectations. My wife had, definitely we talked before we got married. We consulted and we talked, and but my wife had certain expectations that she didn't speak to me. She had certain expectations that I would eventually evolve, that I would eventually grow and change. And, she didn't tell me about those expectations. And so when I didn't meet her unspoken expectations, there was frustration on her part. And there was frustration on my part as well, because, hey, I didn't know that I was going to have to do those things. So that's why this tip is a really, really, really good piece of advice to follow. And how do you implement this tip? Let me show you. Let's go back here. So obviously, simple things. You can send an email giving the parent a summary of what they can expect out of your class. And definitely during this time, I think it's good. You can't over communicate. You cannot over communicate. So really filling that email with and formatting it nicely, and using small paragraphs, and giving the reader an idea of what they can expect to get out of the email. Now, also what you can do, and I think this is a really good practice for you, is you need to get used to just looking at that camera and not receiving any kind of feedback. So this is a good idea to do a pre-recorded message where you're interacting with that camera, where people get to see you smile, where people get to see you talk, and they get to sense who you are, and feel your heart. So that's really good practice, because you're going to need to do that during your class as well. And that was actually one of my tips in the last video that I did, when I talked about looking at the camera and making that connection. So if you want to check out that video, a link is going to pop up now, so you can check part 1 out of these tips, these great tips that you can use to help you begin the year with distance learning. So that pre-recorded message so that pre-recorded message gives you really good practice, and it's a great way to introduce yourself to your parents, and once again convey what it's going to be like in your class. And the thing before you do this, before you even record this message, is you can invite parents to send you questions, and you can answer a lot of those questions in that pre-recorded message. So that, again, that's another way you're facing you're facing those expectations before it's even a problem. Because a lot of times with parents, if you give them a reason why things aren't necessarily going to go their way, they'll be okay. And I think that's just human nature. We're okay if we get an explanation. We may not like it, but at least we got an explanation, and the situation, it wasn't ducked or dodged. Now, the next thing you can do, and this is a little bit tricky, is you can actually do a virtual meeting where you open it up to parents. Now, I would prefer you do the pre-recorded message, but your district may make you actually do a virtual meeting. And so with this, be prepared to get questions that you don't know the answer to, or that you can't necessarily answer in that space, or else things are going to go totally sideways, and you definitely don't want to begin the year like that. So that is an option that you have, but I would say just stick to the pre-recorded message with questions sent in advance that you can just simply answer. Now, the second tip is to make use of essential questions. Essential questions. Unfortunately, there's going to be things that you're going to have to cut out of the curriculum. Now, this is unfortunate, but you just now with this space, with these circumstances, you're not going to have as much time. And I believe, I believe that all administration understands this, and they've sent you that message that you're going to have to really narrow your focus and be really, really sharp regarding the things that you want your students to know and be able to do during the time when we're in distance learning. So you've got to be sharp. And the reason I love essential questions is because they really sharpen your focus. They sharpen your focus and they help you to stay honest. So you're not trying to go over things that you really like. And for me, high school social studies teacher, I'm really, really good for just mixing in certain things that do pertain to the topic that we're talking about, but they're fun stories to share. Well, we don't necessarily have that luxury. And so we have to be sharp in this virtual space. So let's see here. And check this out. This is a great point. This is a quote by Jeffrey D. Wilhelm, and he wrote a fantastic article about essential questions, and I'm going to link to that in the description section. The secret to teaching may be as simple as asking students good questions and then giving them the opportunity to find the answers. I love that. The opportunity to find the answers. And that's why I think it's a great idea to flip your classroom. Flip your classroom. Ideally, if you can record your own videos, that would be great. But if you can't, there are other videos out there. But the the money is in when students are on a journey. I used to have a sign, two signs, one on the outside of my door, one on the inside. On the outside, it said enter seeking, enter seeking, enter seeking. And on the inside of the door, it said leave with knowledge. Enter seeking, leave with knowledge. Your students are on a journey each time they enter your classroom, whether it be your physical classroom or your virtual classroom. They should go into your classroom with the expectation of finding something and flipping your classroom. And definitely with this tip here, making use of those essential questions that gives them their mission statement. When they go in your classroom, they've got that essential question. This is your mission statement. And so you're cutting out all of the I'm not going to call it fluff, but the stuff that you just can't necessarily get to. You're cutting that out and you're focusing the student on making sure that they can answer this essential question. And so that's the lens through which they look at everything, through this essential question. So how do you apply this? Let's take a look here. So definitely the concept of the backwards design, I think it's great because it helps you to not go down those other rabbit holes or not touch those other things that you really like. And it is important, but you've decided, or your district has decided that you can't do it. You just can't do that in this virtual space. So the backwards design, start with the end in mind. What are those questions that are going to help the students get to that end, to that place, to that destination? And to be even more focused, I think it's definitely important because you and I know that students, they're going to take, if you give them an excuse, or if they have a reason, if they have a reasonable excuse, they're going to take it. If they say, "Oh, I can't understand. I don't know where this is going," or "I can't follow along." So that's why we as leaders, we read that and we think ahead. And that's why I'm saying that you should also make sure that every assignment is pointing to an essential question. Even if you have to write the or type the essential question on the assignment to send that message to the student that this assignment is going to help you answer this question. So that's got to be crystal clear to the students. Okay, let's not give them what in their eyes what they believe is a reasonable excuse to not engage, to not do what they're supposed to do. Okay, so the other thing too is you can even use this for skills. Now, I can think of math is what really comes to mind when I talk about using this for skills. A lot of you out there are used to writing yes an objective, but also something along the lines of students will be able to dot 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 whatever that skill is. So you can use this for skills as well, because that's going to help you be really focused in terms of what you're doing during the class, what your expectations are, and of course, what the students are going to be doing. And bottom line, every task has a purpose, and we really have to make sure that we are faithful to that concept, especially during this virtual setting, because we have less time. We have less time, and so we've got to get students to certain points while we're doing this distance learning thing. So each task must have a purpose, and it's got to point back to that essential question. So if you like what you're hearing so far, I want to ask that you please like the video and subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to be sharing even more tips with you to help you as you begin the year with distance learning. Next up, you see this a lot. You see this a lot from businesses that asking for feedback helps you to get better. Like, we don't know when this is going to end. And I know that that can be scary and is very unfortunate for students, because we know that in person is so much better, but we don't know when this is going to end. And remember, you're a leader, and you being a leader, you have to you've got to think ahead. You've got to think about the future. You've got to be always focused on growing and getting better, and we grow and get better through feedback. So, and this is very simple. You get this. You apply this by, you can survey the students. Now, you don't want to do too many surveys. You don't want to do too many of them, but pick, you know what's going to work for the group of students that you serve. So, you can also talk to them. It can be just a casual conversation. Hey, how do you think things are going? But when you do that on an individual basis, make sure that you're picking, try to do a random group of students when you go individual, so you can get a good representation of how it is going amongst for all of your students. So, and then you can also pull in some small groups, have a small group of students join you for a Zoom conversation where you're getting feedback, where you're asking questions, and you're focused on the student experience. When you're getting these feedback, how can I make this better? What's going well? What's not going well? When you talk to the students, when you receive this feedback, let them know how grateful you are for that feedback, because people like to be helpful. People like to be helpful. And when your students see that you are responding very well to the feedback that you're giving them, and you're really thankful and you're really joyful and you're passionate about making changes so that things are even better for them, they're going to want to give you even more feedback in the future. And so use that. That's definitely a way to build relationships and also improve what you're doing at the same time. So let's cut back here to our presentation. And our fourth tip is a morning meeting. Morning meeting. I was a part of a school, a small school, and every morning we had a morning meeting, and it was just such a good time to set the tone for the day. I really, really enjoyed it. And at the end of the meeting, students all repeated the motto, and it was all positive. Talked about all students making good decisions and being a leader. And it was uplifting, it was motivational. And I think it would be a great idea in this environment during this time to have a morning meeting. And in the morning meeting, what I really like about it is it encourages the students to get up. It encourages them to get up at a more reasonable time to begin the day. So the morning meeting is optional. It's optional. But I encourage you, if you do decide to do this, make sure that, if you've got 60 students in the morning meeting, just give it your all. Just go all out. Whatever you plan to do, make it wonderful. And if you have two students in your morning meeting, again, give it your all. Go all out. Be creative. Like this is the time. This is why the message that teachers are leaders is so relevant now. It's because leaders don't sit on their hands. They don't wait for things to happen. They make things happen. And with this morning meeting, I'm sure you can think of some ideas of how to make this work, but I'm going to just give you a couple here. You can do a virtual pep rally. A virtual pep rally. Yes, it's going to be corny, of course. But, the in my experience, the students like a little corniness. They really do. And, I can remember numerous times connecting with students over a silly one of those dad jokes, and like they try so hard not to laugh, but they can't help it because we've all got a little bit of corniness in them, in us. So yeah, a virtual pep rally, however you want to do it, however you want to lead the charge. You can also do some words of encouragement. If you want to read a quote to the students, do a quote of the day. If you want to adopt a class motto, whatever you want to do. And last but not least, you can do a motivational video. Now, I got a plug here for Vision Chasers. Vision Chasers is another YouTube channel that I have, and I'm gonna link to it right now. You're gonna see the link. It's another YouTube channel that I have, and in that channel, I speak to students. I give them motivational messages, and the inspiration for that channel was that I believe I was given a gift to speak to students, to speak to young people, and I'll have students tell me, "Oh, you should write a book," yada yada yada. And so out of the things that my students told me came the Vision Chasers YouTube channel. And every Sunday I post a quote of the week, just some motivational words to get people pumped up and excited to make good decisions. So you can use a Vision Chasers video, or you can use another motivational video. Just be mindful of how long the video is, because you don't want to lose your audience. But a motivational video is a great way to get the day started, to get everyone on one accord, on the same page, to unite your class in this virtual setting. And the other thing that I really like about it is that it gives your students common language. It gives them common language that you can always go back to. So if you have a student they're struggling getting some concept, you can refer to that motivational video at the beginning of the day and say, "Hey, remember yada yada yada, we gotta use what we learned in that video in order to tackle this math, in order to tackle this science. We can do this, remember?" There you have it. 4 more tips to help you navigate this time period where we are beginning the school year online. If you found value in any of those tips, I would ask that you please subscribe and like this video. So I thank you so much for that. Additionally, if you like what we're doing here, there is a way that you can partner with us. So just check out the description section to find more details about that. Well, I thank you so much for watching. And until we meet again, please don't forget that teachers are leaders. Bye.